One of the things that I've noticed coming here for the first time is just how massive everything is. Like when China puts its mind to doing something, it seems to happen on a massive scale, whether it's this conference centre or whether it's a city or a new train line or a new train station. And you kind of see an enormous amount of potential for the country to have just a huge impact on this planet. Do you think it's going to be a positive impact? Do you think that they have the potential to reshape the kind of the economy and patterns of consumption and priorities in our development? Or because if it's a negative impact, the alternative, I guess, is it's going to be big, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's why I think there's a very good chance that China will decide the fate of mankind in the 21st century in many ways. They're not the only country. They only account for a fifth of the world's population, but basically you magnify anything by a Chinese scale and it becomes globally significant. And that can be very bad, as in if you start to consume too much or emit too much, clearly you start to have a big impact, and you can see that. China's the world's biggest emitter. It's also its demand for commodities from whether it's soy or whether it's copper or whether it's steel has pushed up prices to the point where maybe some people in other countries can't afford them to the degree they could before. And it's also there's also a good side, of course. If once China says, right, we're going to invest in wind, or we're going to develop an electric car industry, then they can scale things up very, very quickly. And if they can do it successfully, if they can mass produce them at a low rate, for example, that could transform transport emissions. So there's that side. Then there's that. I think the real key is consumption, and how Chinese consumption patterns affect the rest of the world. If they follow the European model, or even worse, the American model, and have a car and a half each, or a car per family, and eat that much meat and use that much plastic and so on, then we are in very serious trouble in terms of resources and waste. If, on the other hand, they can decide, actually, we don't want that, it's not healthy, it's not good for our economy, it's not sustainable, and we're going to pioneer something else, which will mean, at an individual level, living differently, but also at a government level, building new types of cities and developing your industry in a different way, then I think that will really help our species get over the big population hump we're going to have in the next 40 years as global population goes from 7 billion to 9 billion by 2050. That's going to be such a difficult time for us. And if a big country like China can find this new model, then other countries behind it are going to follow. India and Brazil and Indonesia, these very heavily populated countries, still developing fast, coming up from behind, want a better standard of living. Hopefully, though, it won't be that the current Western standard of living, or not so much standard of living is fine, but the wastefulness of living.
Is that even possible? Because I'm watching the Chinese news last night, and they're saying that 10,000 cars a week being added to the road in Beijing, and you look outside and the smog already is something that's choking in these cities, and you kind of think, well, both at the local level, certainly that can't go on. Surely it seems that it must get to a stage where people are going to say this isn't sustainable. And at an international level, just purely in terms of the demand on resources, I think there's a New Economics Foundation report which suggests that you have to have 8 planets if China's consumption levels went up to the same levels as the US or Australia. So is there an alternative here, or are we going to see China forge a new model of development, do you think, over the next couple of decades?
On the whole, I would say the trends are all in the wrong. Most of the trends are in the wrong direction.
Excellent. Okay.
I'm pessimistic, but I'm not without hope. Let's put it that way. I think consumption levels are going the wrong way. Car ownership is going the wrong way. Consumption of fossil fuels is going the wrong way. But I would say the environmental crisis isn't isn't something that's a distant prospect in China. It's right here. And for that reason, I think there will be an imperative to change. Whether that's change that comes at a government level and is managed, which I think they're trying to do, but perhaps not quick enough, is the nice way of doing things. The other way is you do hit a series of tipping points of running out of certain resources, of hitting levels of climate change that are not just the kind of level of destruction we have now, but really horrible levels of destruction that kill a lot of people, but also force people to move. And then you start to get security problems, regional instability. If you start to go down that line, and then we're in real trouble. So I think that's why China really is at the heart of the whole issue here, not just because it's hosting the conference.
Okay, well, I'll cling on to the not without hope bit of that that message, and I know that you've got to head off and write an article, so
thanks very much.
pull to a close there, and thanks very much for joining us, really interesting.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And I'll hand back to our studio in the UK.